right. So I took a breath and I calmed down. So far, we have watched Nancy do a not so good opening and then followed up with a badass opening. Let's see where she goes from here.
And changing the world is hard. It won't happen with just one person with one single idea. That idea.
If you watch part one, she's literally contradicting herself. Just saying. But this is when you fall into this motivational speaker trap. That's why it's happening, Nancy. It's because you're falling into this motivational speaker trap instead of just jumping into the information. We still, by the way, we still haven't talked about any information.
Has got to spread or it won't be effective.
2 minutes in.
So it has to come out of you.
How long is your attention span? Why do you think I'm making these videos way shorter than my Simon Sinek videos? Because I know you. Attention span.
And out into the open for people to see.
Yeah.
And the way that ideas are conveyed the most effectively is through story. You know, for thousands of years, illiterate generations would pass on their values and their culture from generation to generation, and they would stay intact. So there's something kind of magical about a story structure that makes it so that when it's assembled, it can be ingested and then recalled by the person who's receiving it. So, basically,
that was fine. I mean, it was just blah, right? Like, she's not saying anything we haven't heard yet, right? You've all heard storytelling is important. Storytelling can connect with people. Storytelling, blah. It's like, but in the world of communication, storytelling for the past 5 or 6 years has been like the big thing, right?
basically a story, you get a physical reaction. Your heart can race, your eyes can dilate. You could talk about, oh, I got a chill down my spine, or I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. We actually physically react.
Again, Nancy, why not why not, instead of giving me these general statements, because everyone's like, but I bet you if you ask someone in the audience, give me an example, they'd be like, oh, geez, I don't know. But what if you gave a specific example? I'll give you and I'll tell you one in a second. I just want to see where you're going with this.
When someone's telling us a story.
I want to see if you actually give an example.
The stage is the same. A story can be told, but once a presentation's told, it completely flatline.
Okay. That story stuff was great, but you're so far you have not told anyone anything that they don't already know. We are 3 minutes in, and we still haven't really provided any information, which means you're losing them. And everyone's like, They're politely nodding. Okay. What if you would have said that, but then jumped into a specific? Have you ever heard a really good ghost story? Even though you know it's not true, whoever told it to you, it gets you, right? And you feel yourself getting anxious, and you feel yourself kind of getting nervous. That's the power of story, because it elicits an emotional reaction. And then you get into all the third person explanation. It does blank and blank and blank. But again, anchor them to a specific, because otherwise they're just going to disregard all of this and keep waiting for actual information, things they don't know.
And I wanted to figure out why. Why is it that we physically sit with rapt attention during a story, but it just dies for a presentation?
This is good as an ending, that question. So why is it someone can tell you like a really quick scary story, or someone shows you a little 4-second video, but a presentation about fear and overcoming your fears, and the whole room just goes to sleep, and you've all sat through them? Why is it a YouTube video? And if I had more time, I would find one and I would say, why is it a YouTube video by blank? You can watch for 5 to 10 minutes. But a 1-minute presentation on something and you're done. That's me. Like, honestly, I could probably go more specific there too, but I'm just in the moment trying to give you some ideas where we could see the difference. Do you know what I mean? Here's a great example. What if I said, there's that amazing story, the shortest scary story in the world. What if I started off the presentation, the second part, and I said, how many people love being scared? Show of hands. Let's see. Okay, a bunch of you. Probably if I did that, you'd get giggles. Okay, all right, a few of you. I love being scared because my adrenaline goes up. I start sweating. I get really nervous. It creates a physical reaction. The greatest, shortest, scary story in the world. The last man in a room. I could do this. Sorry. The greatest scary story in the world. It's actually the shortest scary story in the world. The last person on earth sat by himself in a room. There was a knock on the door. Ooh, I could have put that on my slide. I could have just said, "Can everyone read this for me?" Right? And then I said, "Now, if I was to spend 10 or 15 seconds talking to you about how fear always causes reactions and fears are very important in dictating human, and you've already tuned me out. What if she had literally done what I've just done there? That could have communicated the idea, but it would also have engaged your audience plus given them a specific. And then the next slide says this, or the next slide starts with like that heartbeat thing.
So even though the stage is the same, a story can be told, but once a presentation's told, it completely flatlines. And
that little section right after you had done what I just suggested. How much more impact would that have had? How much more engagement would that have had? How many few words would you have needed to create and instill a message in someone's brain?
I wanted to figure out why. Why is it that we physically sit with
Question.
rapt attention during
Why?
a story, but it just dies for a presentation?
Yeah.
So I wanted to figure out how do
This
you
part.
incorporate story into presentations. So we've had thousands of presentations back at the shop, hundreds of thousands of presentations actually. So I knew the context of a really bad presentation. And I decided to study cinema and literature and really dig in and figure out what was going on and why it was.
Now what I like about what you're doing here is that now you're referencing specific sources that you do. And I do that too. So I looked into police interrogation. I looked into poker analysis when I was wanting to figure out like physicality, those two kind of areas. I talked to buskers in terms of how do you engage an audience. Those things people are always curious about. Literature and cinema? Yeah, sure. That's interesting. Yeah. Movies and books? Just so it's not so like formal sounding. When you say literature and cinema, I'm literally imagining you like, so I studied Shakespeare, right? And watched the classic films, watched The Great Gatsby. Sorry, watched I don't know, Citizen Kane, to analyze, and it just has a detachment from like our day-to-day language. Okay, I'm gonna stop the video there because I get all worked up again. So what we've seen so far, lots of places to improve, but hints of genius at the same time. Let's see what else Nancy brings us in the next video.